Now I know what you're gonna say. This is for medicinal purposes. So I'm using something like this. You can use anything you want for a container. This is just so that I can hold everything into this container, everything that I need. Now, if you want something that's just, a little bit smaller, might fit into your pocket, then this is something that you can do where you wrap the line on the outside. And so this is a nice portable way to do it as well. And then you can put your hooks and sinkers or whatever else in there. I'm choosing something a little bit bigger, so it's going to hold everything in there. So now comes all the things that will go inside the container. First of all, obviously, is the fishing line, and this is a spool that will fit in there. And I kind of like how it's a wider one instead of the thinner ones like that, in that when you're trying to re-spool it or put the line back on the spool, it's a little bit easier, obviously, with something so wide because you don't have to be so accurate. Little elastic band just holding everything in place. This is my holder. So this is kind of an interesting thing. It's part of obviously it's part of an arrow. That's a broken arrow that I just had to cut off here. And of course you don't need something like this, but this is something convenient. And I'll show you a little fun, interesting thing with this. So when you put this through here, right, stick it through on the vanes and you push back down, that actually holds it into place. So if you're kind of spooling the line back on or wanting to roll the line back on, it's all right there, pretty nice and easy, and it stays right there. The other thing I'm going to use this for is sticking it into the ground like this, and that's to hold the spool. So if I don't want to hold it in my hand, I can just leave it there on the ground pushed in. So that's kind of neat. Now, if you don't have this, what you can do is if you have a small stick that will fit within the length, obviously, of the container, you can use a hair elastic or an elastic, anything that you want to. Tape even, just tape on the bottom there, just to hold that in place. Put your spool on there, and then bam, you have something that stops the spool from sliding up and down. And you can put it on either side if you want to have that as a handle like that, right? And have something taped up or on the ends so the spool doesn't fall on and off. We need obviously hooks and weights and floats maybe. So I have like a little pencil float or this kind of float or clip-on float there. A lot of float options, and these will actually all fit in the container. And some different size hooks. So I got some circle hooks. I just have some octopus or J hooks there. Some small jig heads and just some split shots and some other weights. So in this kind of a rig, I usually like to do some sort of a bottom rig. So this will go and hold the rig down on the bottom, and the line goes up to a hook. And so I kind of like that for this kind of a hand line type of rig. Also makes it a ton easier to cast when the weight's on the end of the line. And I'll show you how I'm going to hook that up. And this used to be an old split shot weight holder. Again, you don't need this. You can just use tiny Ziploc bags to kind of separate everything and just throw that in the container. So this is going to go in, and that, a bunch of floats. If you need to use that, that'll go in, and that's it. Everything's in there in the container with room to spare. You can put a pair of pliers in there, cutters, obviously a knife, anything you want in there. Very lightweight and easy to bring around. So really this kind of thing can be a bug out kit that you can take with you anywhere in a small backpack even, no problem. There's a lot of room in there, and it's the simplest way to fish. What I should do is try to catch a salmon on this one day. Obviously some heavier line, but that would be kind of fun. So this is the current setup I'm going to be working with. So I tied this knot, I don't know what it's exactly called, a T-knot or something like that, onto this tiny itty bitty little hook. And then that proceeds on to a loop knot at the bottom, and that loop knot is going to go on, say, for example, this sinker. Push that through the loop. Push the loop, through the sinker. All right, so it's hanging there. Put the sinker back through the loop, and there you have it hanging there. So that's a nice easy setup. So that's going to sit on the bottom, and that is going to hang there like that. Loop the line back on here. Careful with the hook. The other benefit of this kind of bug out container is, who's going to take this? Nobody. So also theft proof. So here's an example of how I set it up so that the line does not pull out at all. It just goes through the little notch in the spool and then through the arrow, and that keeps it right in the spot. Most of the time, however, I'm just throwing this out. You have to make sure you get enough line that's out so when you toss it, it doesn't get snagged and then fly back at you. Now in this little outflow of the creek, there's usually just some creek chub and striped shiner. Such an incredibly simple but fun way to fish, and it brings me back to the roots, just the most simplest of fishing. Well, thanks for watching this very moving video on how to set up your own hand lining rig. Hope to see you in the next Ladybug adventure.